All right, and we're back for another episode of Black Life Amplified. It's the virtual town hall series hosted by the African American Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany L. Wright, and before we get started, I want to give a very special thank you to our sponsors, which include the Minneapolis Foundation, Northpoint Health and Wellness, and Children's Minnesota, who all come together to fund this town hall. And I, of course, want to give a very special thank you to our community organizations, which include Northpoint Health and Wellness, Children's Minnesota, Insight News, Gray Matter, the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, and Minnesota Community Care. Now, be sure to check out the African American Leadership Forum Facebook page and YouTube channel to watch previous episodes of Black Life Amplified, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date on all future episodes. Our last episode was called Black Leadership Amplified. We talked to some amazing Black leaders to really unpack the nuances and complexity of Black leadership, what it means to do grassroots work, and then to move on and to go into other spaces and places to advance equity work, even if you're the only one with a seat at the table who looks like you. It's a really great episode on what leadership looks like from the inside out, and I highly encourage that you check it out. Now, on today's episode, we are actually focused on how to keep youth safe and engaged this summer. It's been our first summer out really since the COVID-19 pandemic. And so young people are itching to get into the streets, to get active. And I'm sure parents are too. I know I am. But we have to do it in a way that is safe, that's responsible, that's ethical. And we have to keep in mind the times that we're in. We are still the epicenter of a global uprising. We're still in the middle of a pandemic and community violence. We've seen a massive uptick, especially within the Twin Cities. And so all things considered, we really have to think about where we allow our children to be and who we allow them to be with. And on today's show, I have the opportunity to interview three panelists who are doing phenomenal youth work. And then later on in the show, we'll talk to Adriene Thornton, who is a nurse and infection preventionist with Children's Minnesota, to talk about how to keep our kids safe and COVID-free this summer. But up first, please join me in welcoming our panelist, Mondo Davison, who you may know as the Black Tech Guy. He's the founder and CEO of Local Links, as well as Schools. Anthony Galloway, who is the executive director of Arts Us, and Brett Buckner, who is the managing director of 1MN. Welcome, panelists, to Black Life Amplified.
How y'all doing?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. I'm gonna get it out the way now so I can stop thinking about it. Anthony shared with us behind the scenes that there's a culinary situation happening with the young people at Arts Us. Can you spill the tea on what's happening? Because I did not eat before we got
Sure.
So I'm feeling away, you know.
Sure. So here at Arts Us, we have one of our programs is our youth leadership program. So as you matriculate through our program and you get to middle and high school, there's a leadership component that's led actually by young people who have matriculated to the program. Our director of youth leadership is Afia Ward, who was a participant herself. So they're taking foods from the diaspora, different communities in the diaspora, and they come together on Fridays after their week of programming, and they cook together, socially distantly, gloved up, masked up, all that kind of thing. But they make that food, and so soon those fumes are going to start wafting here into the offices at Arts Us. So that's what's happening in the background.
Got it. Okay. So aside from the cooking that's happening, and us probably wrapping the show up a little early so we can all head over there for breakfast, what else does Arts Us do?
Sure. So we develop young leaders through the art and culture and science of the African diaspora. So youth at any given time in the center, after school, during the summer, are training in African storytelling, drumming, spoken word, various art forms with professional artists, Black professional artists from across the diaspora. And so, that's our heartbeat. In addition, once you get to middle and high school, like I said, there's K-12 or K-6 is about exposure to all these different art forms and ways of being and cultural ways of caring for self across the diaspora. But then when we get to middle and high school, you transition to this leadership role, which is inclusive of the leadership programs I've already talked about, kind of identity development work, but also our civil rights research experience, which is a 6-week ethnic studies course followed by travel to places where civil rights actually happened. And that's designed by Black educators from across the Twin Cities and participated in by school districts and partners from across the Twin Cities as well. So our route is to use the culture, art, and science of the African diaspora to grow self, to grow our identity. And it's open to all, but it's from that lens unapologetically.
Okay, thank you for saying that. So it's open to all, but of course you center the experience of those from the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular age range that you're catering to?
Sure. So our after school and summer programs are elementary focused. Our leadership program is middle and high school focused. And so there's something to offer for all ages. For our leadership program, there's kind of multiple on-ramps. So there's a summer on-ramp, a fall on-ramp. And for elementary students, K-6, there's after school programs. And then, of course, Saturday programs and just opportunities that pop up. As long as we can get kids involved and connected to artists in the community, that's our game, our game plan. So it's open K-12, and there are multiple opportunities all along the way.
Got it. Okay. And I know that you all are located in the heart of the Rondo community. How important is that particular geography to the work that you all do?
Very, very important. Every program, kids are connecting to the Rondo neighborhood. And I think it's important to underscore the fact that this organization was started by Black women who were artists with Penumbra Theater in the area who wanted to teach from that perspective. And the root of that is that Rondo story. Many of those folks who started this organization lost their families, lost property on Rondo. And so that's an essential piece. After school programs, summer programs, every group of kids who comes in here is going to walk Rondo, is going to walk into the place. They're going to go to Rondo Plaza. They're going to go to those places. And I think it's also important that, you know, myself, I'm an Arts kid, grew up in this area, went to Central High School, was a classmate of Philando Castillo. Many of our kids come from J.J. Hill. And so one of the things that we also do, in addition to walking and being and understanding the story of Rondo, we go to the Philando Castillo Memorial Garden, and we have youth in our program right now who received and were fed lunch by Philando. And so they tell their stories. And so that story and our rich stories are the centerpiece for a lot of the work that we do.
I go to JJ Hill often. I have play dates there with my mom group, and I take my daughter and we play in the garden. And it's so incredibly important for us as adults to have those conversations with our young people about the history of our neighborhoods. I'm also a product of Rondo and grew up the street from Arts Us. But I want to circle back to the conversation about Philando Castile. We just passed, I believe it's the 5-year anniversary of his passing just a few days ago. And he was so integral to young people within that area, and continues to be. In fact, at one of the play dates that I had, my colleague Shavunda's son asked about Philando. She said, what's the bench? What is this? You know, and she explains and what happened. So we'll get more into how we communicate with our kids, the nuances and complexities of this world, especially as Black kids. There's so much that they have to navigate through. So super excited to have you here. We're going to continue to unpack the work that Arts Us does. And also want to give you your flowers. You all performed at the Saints game on Juneteenth. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So next, I want to pivot to Mondo. Tell us about local links and tell us about schools. What are these programs? We know you as the Black tech guy, so I have a feeling you are helping our young people integrate into tech as well, but how are you doing it?
Yeah. So being in tech for over a decade now, the thing that I recognize the most is it's not even about the tech, right? We just use technology to scale a thing. But the solution is in the humans, right? In the community. And so my strength is like, let me go find the strength in the community and wrap tech around it so that strength can be touched by so many more people. And so, for example, schools, we just go and get content, rich, culturally relevant content from the community, and we package it in a way that connects in the classroom, right? Because so many times in the classroom, we don't have content that looks, sounds, or feels like us. Local links just launched, is it last week? I was about to say a few days ago. It might have been last week now, earlier this week. Anyways, the goal of local links is to literally like hyper focus on that 15 to 25-year-old demographic and connect them to their purpose and passion, right? And so I'll tell a quick anecdote because we're doing this through text. And so we built some technology so we can text youth in a way that they can actually respond. They can do voice messages back. They can do these things within video. That's super dope. But it's all about the compelling content. And so, quick story. So I remember I used to be a former educator at Obama, a few blocks away from JJ Hill. And one of the most powerful professional developments was actually co-facilitated by Anthony. And so this had to be like 2013, 14, somewhere around there. And Anthony told this story that was so powerful, he left educators in the room in tears. But it was so healing and it was so refreshing, and it felt like it just felt like there was a connection there that we hadn't felt in a long time as educators. And so in my brain, I never forgot about that, because I'm like, yo, what if there were some cameras in here recording that compelling moment? It was literally like, you probably see it in a movie or something, like, oh man, that closed the movie out, or that took the person from, I don't know if I can do this thing, to like, let's go win this game. And taking that same theme and saying, hey, there's so many of those stories in our community. How do we go get them? And how do we make sure that every single day a young person wakes up with that story in their pocket and they can say, oh, that's Anthony, and you're saying like that type of energy is at Arts Us? We want to be there. And so our goal is going and getting that content from the community, using our technology to text it to young folks, and then connect them to the people that they may not have been aware of, or recognize that they're welcome to just walk in today.
And so would you consider it to be like a social networking platform, or like, how does the connection piece happen?
Yeah, so literally it is text the number. The experience is so dope. If you're watching right now and you are a parent, you are a young person, you're a youth leader, like just text the number and just feel the vibe. I guarantee you'd be like, oh, this is super dope. And so the way we look at it is, if somebody texts you, you're going to look at the text, you're going to watch the video. And so we just built a whole back-end system to connect all the dots. And so social media, right? There's hundreds of millions, billions of people on there, right? And there's just so much content, and you just see if somebody wants to watch your content through the feed. And we're like, nope, let's go partner with all the youth organizations and say, hey, have your youth text this number. And we're essentially like this centralized partner that no matter what, we are going to support youth with powerful purpose and passion content. And then like get feedback, right? Like, hey, Arts Us, what do you want to know from your young people? Like, what is that check-in metric? And it might just be like, yo, how do you feel this week? Like, I feel glorious. I feel great. I feel good. Or like, no, I don't feel that good. This was a struggling week. And if we can use technology to kind of just track that human emotion and say like, yo, Brittany Wright, she was struggling this week. Yo, she kept responding like this was not a good week. And so like, hey, Anthony, you might want to touch base with that person, because so many of our program coordinators, like they're stretched so thin and they can't have those one-on-one conversations with everybody all the time. And we just try to use tech to be able to compel them to be great, and then get information and say like, hey, that person is doing amazing, or hey, you probably want to check in with them. And so my strength is building a tech, but the community does the work.
That's amazing. What I love about that is I feel like a lot of young people feel more comfortable expressing themselves in a digital space than, you put them in a room with a therapist and they're like, I don't want to talk to them, it feels like a low pressure, low risk, low commitment way to engage. I can do it on my own time. And, this is not just a Gen Z thing. I'm a millennial. I'm not proud of it, but I'm gonna be real. When I first wake up in the morning, I get on social media. I look at my phone. I look at my messages, my notifications. I ain't even looking at emails because I'm not trying to stress myself out. But, my hope is that I come across like inspirational content, right? Like I try to subscribe and follow people that I'm going to see positive things on my newsfeed. I'm going to see E.T. the hip hop preacher and be motivated and inspired to get up and go and be great, but sometimes I see Wendy Williams and I'm like, that's not, that's not the energy that I want to carry with me into my day. that doesn't help me in developing as a leader, or just being making sure that my energy is right and that I'm aligned before I step out into the world and interact with other people.
Yeah, I want
Were you
to
gonna say
piggyback
something?
that just real
Yeah.
quick, because like, yo, when I get in my zone, it's like, yo, put on ET. So like, yo, that ET is like, man, this person got me going. I'm ready. I can go take over the world. But there's so many ETs in our community where it's just not a figure that you can't touch. And so every creative on our team is between that 20 to 30-year-old range. And so they know how to create that compelling media that gives that same ET energy. And you're like, yo, ET is right in the midway. I got to connect to them. And so it's a vibe. We just got to make it happen.
Okay, well, I'm not in the age range that you described. I'm 30. Can I still subscribe? Can
You
I
can,
subscribe
you
and
can,
opt
but
in?
I think here's the thing that's going to be most powerful, in my opinion. So we send our kids to school or to programming or to these things, and we hope, wish, pray that the connection, the learning lessons that we want to happen, the same things that we as parents are teaching in our household is happening in other places. Our goal is to make sure that we have youth on the platform, but the rest of the village. So the village sees the content every day too, because the questions that we ask for the week, we want you to have the conversation at the dinner table. So it is a holistic approach. So we're all pointing in the right direction, and we just using tech to do it.
I love it. I love that. And we're going to continue to talk about how to connect authentically with young people. I think technology is a brilliant way to do that. And then there are folks, in the village who may not be as tech savvy, but still want to have that connection. And so we're going to talk about how we foster that in a little bit. Next, I want to bring up Brett Buckner, who is the managing director at One Minnesota. Tell us about the Seeds to Harvest program.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and it's good to see Anthony and Amanda right there. Just amazing work. We are just in awe of what you guys do and be able to partner with y'all. Mondo, we've been working on some other things as well, so love to see live links get, local links get up as well. Seeds to Harvest is a program that actually 1 week before George Floyd's murder, a group of us, with everything that was going on in the community, we said we had to stand up in North Minneapolis and just take care of some basic things. One, just make sure that we're connecting with our kids directly. That was our first thing. Two, making sure that we didn't forget that we still have things that we can do to keep our communities safe and focused and everything else. So we started doing community cleanups and planting of trees and just gardening activities, just trying to keep people out and about. And then when George Floyd was murdered, we said we had to take it to another level. So we got involved in the issue of PPE, and it'd be great to see Adrienne again and talk about our COVID updates and everything else. But we made sure that our kids were, first and foremost, leading the charge and saying, "How do you guys want to reconnect?" And the kids responded, and through the past year, we passed out over 28,000 items of PPE to our community in North Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and we're just making things happen. So the reality is that we had to respond to make sure that our kids had a place where they could feel like they were in a safe place and still being a part of the solution and not being just put away as we're trying to just get through this thing called COVID. So that's how we started, and we moved on into creating these amazing and just audacious ideas of creating a summer games to let our kids connect with each other, just mobilize themselves again around sports, but also around other activities, just learning how to play and connect with each other, breaking bread with each other, and really learning from each other through their service activities. So we're really excited about what we're going on, and we're looking forward to this next, not just this year, but this 4-year initiative that we've pulled together.
And the website is seedstoharvestmn.org if people want to register, and you're still open for enrollment. It's not too late for folks to join.
Man, day of. Our thing is that the door will always remain open for the kids. We will never turn a kid away. We want to make sure that, and again, but let me be clear about this, 3rd through 8th graders we're working on with this for this session. And we began on July 18th with Northside Soccer Day, and we're promoting some very unique opportunities as well through that. teaching this new sport called futsal through the Twin Cities Soul Academy, and the wonderful work that Mario Wimberly and his crew is pulling together. But we're just trying to give our kids some new opportunities to reimagine what they can be and how they can be, through not just sports, but academic and as well as artistic expression. So from the July 18th all the way to August 8th, where we're going to try to break 2 world records. Actually, we will break those. These kids, these kids are going to be, world record breakers, by the end of this whole thing. But more importantly, that they are going to be in a safe place, that they're supported, providing that healthy start, and developing their skills and connecting with each other through their service activity. So in order to, those 5 promises are pretty big as we do our jobs. And again, community wrapping around this whole thing with now our 57 organizations working on the summer games alone. We're really proud about this coalition that has come together for kids and making sure that they are living out their best lives through the summer.
Now, you mentioned you're breaking 2 world records. What are the records?
Yeah, really, I mean, again, Guinness, is a very cheesy thing, man. But so we're going to
be the best.
Hey, be the best. But I mean, these activities are, is that a world record? Sure. So we're going to do the longest continuous game of catch. So we'll have about 500 individuals, 500 plus individuals, just literally playing football catch with each other. And all this is taking place in North Commons Park. So that's August 8th, and that attempt is, and please, everybody come. That one is not just for the kids, it's for a little bit of everybody. So that's going to be a community thing. And then at the end of that whole game of catch, for about 5 minutes, we do a simultaneous high five. And literally, those are 2 records that are listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we're going to take those, and that'll be our claim to fame. But we're going to start to build community around this whole idea that we can do great things together. And we just got to put the imagination to it and the programming to it in order to make it happen.
I love it. No, that's exciting to me. I have a dream to DJ at the longest Soul Train line ever in the Guinness Book of World Records. So I did it.
It's in there, and we need to go ahead. We might be able to pull that off next year, because I mean, over the next 3 years, beyond this year, 3 years on, we're going to find other records and say, yeah, we're going to take that too, and then we're going to do that. So, Brett, go ahead, go ahead and claim your spot in the 1s and 2s, and then we're going to make it happen.
I'm claiming it, and I want all your young people in the Soul Train line. We're gonna take them all the way back, show them how we used to do it.
That's right. Let them hear the elements, earth, wind, and fire.
All of them, exactly. Yeah. Well, let's bring in Adriene Thornton now, who's a nurse and infection preventionist with Children's Minnesota. Adriene, how are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I was doing well. I am doing better hearing about the longest Soul Train line ever. I am in for that, so let me know when we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And I may just show up on August 8th because I'm a slightly competitive person. And so doing anything in the Guinness books makes me want to come and participate. So don't be surprised if I pop
right?
up. It is.
I want to go too. We'll come support.
Yes, we will come support the kids. Yes, but doing really well. I am without my mask today. So I'm excited about that. It's taken me a little bit longer to get comfortable with that, even though I've been fully vaccinated for a while, but I am maskless today. And
That's a big deal.
It is, because I'm in a public place. I am not at home. So
what did it take for you to even get to that level of comfort? Because once you said my vaccination was effective, like 2 weeks after I got the shot, I was like, mask off. I was done.
It really, I'm not there completely for every situation, but I'm in a public place now, but there's nobody else around me. So there are people, indoors near me. And if they come out, I may put my mask on. But, my son is a special needs person, and he has a fragile immune system. So even with the vaccine, he is still at high risk for getting the disease and perhaps getting ill from it. And so I wear the mask for him because I don't want to potentially bring anything home to him, because we just don't know. His immune system kind of does its own thing. And so it's really more protection for him. I'm not worried about me, but I'm more worried about him. So I take it off every now and then.
I mean, I think that's important context. But a lot of times mask wearing is not for you. It's a consideration for other people who are more vulnerable. And the reality that even if you are vaccinated and you've got a strong immune system, you can still transmit it to someone else who maybe won't be able to fight it as well. So I think that's really important context. And speaking of you being a mother, I wanted to, we're already texting about some COVID safe activities for young people. You know, my mom had questions about like, can my brothers go swimming if they're not vaccinated? Is it safe? In this current climate that we're in, we're not quite post-pandemic, but you know, a significant portion of our population has been vaccinated. What would you consider youth-friendly activities to do in a pandemic?
Well, you know, it depends. So it depends on the ages and the vaccine status. So for instance, if there are activities with youth who are 12 years and older, and all of the youth in the program are vaccinated and all of the workers are vaccinated, then sky's the limit. There are no restrictions. You can be indoors, you can be outdoors, you can be together, you can have fun if everyone's vaccinated. If we have a mix of vaccinated and non-vaccinated people, I say explore the outdoors. That is your safest bet. You can do things safely indoors, but you're going to have to put some additional procedures in place. For instance, maintaining, you know, distance between people, having pods of kids. And so I really encourage people to go outside, have fun, find activities to do out there as much as possible. If you have to do activities indoors, you know, if everyone isn't vaccinated, make sure you're doing hand hygiene, make sure you're social distancing between the kids. And then if you can, open a door or a window. What's important about indoors is the airflow. And oftentimes we don't get the airflow to clear the air if there are COVID organisms that begin to circulate in those areas. So just simply opening a door or a window and letting air flow in and out will help with those indoor situations. And so it's really very dependent on the population that you're working with and the vaccination status of the kids and the workers.
Now, Adriene, you know you're going to get some kid in trouble for letting out all the good air outside in the summer. You know, that's a no-no, you know, in our community. So I think we're going to have to remind Meemaw, you know, and whoever's house it is, like, this is for everyone's safety, right? This is a responsible thing to do in a pandemic, even if, you know, we letting all the good air outside a little bit, right? So speaking of young people getting vaccinated, you said ages 12 and up, as long as they're vaccinated. Is that the youngest that you can be to receive a vaccination right now?
Right now, yes. Pfizer is very close to having enough data to present to the FDA to get approval for children younger than 12 years of age, but we're not there yet. We're hoping to have it, you know, in the next few months, maybe when school starts, maybe even the end of the summer. It really just depends on how quickly they can get the data. FDA can review it, and then CDC reviews it. But for right now, it's children down to the age of 12. And they can get it just about anywhere. I mean, there is vaccine all over the place now, which is a nice problem to have. You know, Cub is carrying it in Walgreens, and there are still some pop-up clinics occurring, and public health is still holding clinics. And now we have enough vaccine that a lot of primary care clinics also have it. So you can now make an appointment at your primary care provider's office to get the vaccine for your child. So lots of options out there for people. I really hope that people take advantage of those before we get into the busy fall season when school starts.
So you mentioned your son is vaccinated. My daughter's not old enough to get vaccinated yet. She's still a toddler. But when it becomes available, I actually would like her to, because we travel a lot. I want to know from our other panelists, how do you feel about getting vaccinated and vaccinating your kids? With this particular vaccine, it's a little bit different. You know, the chicken pox has been around for a long time. Measles, mumps, rubella, some of those other vaccines have been around for a while. How do you all feel about the COVID-19 vaccine for your young people?
Well, I'll start. I share with you, Sister Brittany. My children are too young to get the vaccine. We started at the beginning of all of this, coming together as a family and setting a goal that none of us are going to get the vaccine. Not only do we have exposure to folks who are immunocompromised, my daughter has residual lung issues. She was born premature. Everything's fine. She's perfectly healthy, but there's this question that's hanging on us there. And so we just decided we're not going to get the vaccine, or not going to get the virus. And so we chose not to open up and to do so we still mask up around them. We still take that into account. I mean, in fact, my children are here. Everybody here is maxed up. I got my mask here in case I get in the proximity of children. And so they're waiting. They're chomping at the bit to get the vaccine and so that they can feel comfortable with themselves and we can reach our family goal. But this has been a problematic situation with family members who, for varying reasons of comfortability, whether it's history, whether it's concerns about the vaccine itself. We have that internal family in a larger family context battle. One of the things that has made us err onto the side of getting vaccinated is that we have a whole lot of health workers and scientists. In fact, my cousin is an epidemiologist, and so we have really clear breakdowns of the data and the safetyness of the vaccine, around it. And so that's kind of where we've landed. But if that if it doesn't become available for children under 12, we're going to be back to a conversation about whether or not my own kids feel comfortable going back to school in the same ways. And I think participating in summer program may have eased that a little bit, their concern, but it's a really real concern. And it's being driven by my own children who are saying, we want to reach that goal, Daddy, so we don't want to put ourselves into situations where we get the virus. And so they're ready to get the vaccine.
That's awesome. Mondo, what about you? Because Mondo, you said you're not vaccinated, correct?
Correct. I am not. And so I have a daughter. She is 14. And so it's just me and her in the house. Man, for me, I just put it simply, being a software developer, right, which is different than medical development. I just have reservation about the first version of anything. And so whenever V2 comes out, whatever that is, I'm a lot more comfortable. But it's safe. I'm not saying it's not, but just for my comfortability about V1, I just can't rock with it.
That's a really great way to frame it that I think describes a lot of people's hesitancy. It's not that we're anti-vaccinations. It's just this is newer than some of the other vaccinations that we've been presented with. And in the tech world, everybody knows you could get the newest iPhone, but that next one is coming out 9 months later, right?
Right. And the one you just bought ain't gonna work for the first 3 months because they got to get the kinks out. And and I know it's different, right? But that's just my reservation.
Understood.
Well, and I understand your reservations, and I respect, your hesitancy. I mean, we all have hesitancy about things related to medicine, but I just want to make sure that everyone considers that what we're seeing happening now is in the vaccinated population, we're not seeing COVID cases, as many COVID cases. We are seeing less COVID cases, less hospitalization, less death overall, but Black and brown people continue to make up the majority of severely ill cases and death when it's related to COVID. And now that we have, increased circulation of that Delta variant, it is very, very highly contagious. It spreads much quicker. People are getting much sicker. And it is worse for people who aren't vaccinated because you have no protection. And so, for instance, if you get it, you most likely would spread it to your daughter and anyone else who isn't vaccinated. And there's a very good chance that you will end up in the hospital severely ill. And so just keep that in mind that, there's not really going to be a V2. I understand people are waiting to see what happens, but the vaccine is what we have. The current studies that are going on now are looking at, different ages and different populations. For instance, the different populations of people, cancer, kidney disease. We are looking closer at that data. We are not doing anything in terms of changing the actual vaccine. There are other vaccines that are continuing to be developed. So, for instance, the AstraZeneca vaccine is actually being used in other countries, but in the US, we are continuing those trials. And so that vaccine may come out soon, but there is no, really, there's no V2. What we have is what we have, and that's what we're going to have, except for the newer vaccines that will be coming out in the future. So just want to put that out there so that you really understand the risk as well as what is coming down the pipeline.
Quick question. People with the current vaccination, does that mean that they can also contract the Delta variant?
No, the vaccines that we have right now are actually proving protective against the Delta variant. So that's why when we see this increase in the Delta variant, it's in non-vaccinated people because the vaccine is providing that protection.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I didn't know that either, but I, see what's happening in other countries and, hear little bits and pieces, and it's scary, like it's morphing and evolving, which viruses do, but, none of us have been in a global pandemic before. So the idea that we could go through what we experienced in 2020 and that there's some iteration that gets worse really is frightening. And I will say for our audience members who might be new to the show, I have been very hesitant to the vaccine. I was very, very hesitant. And it wasn't until about maybe 6 weeks ago now that I got my vaccination. I actually had Adriene administer it. And I got the Johnson & Johnson. And if you go back to, I have to find the name of the specific episode, but I talked a whole lot of crap about Johnson & Johnson because I haven't trusted them as a brand, rightfully so. And thankfully, because of Adriene, I learned no, they're just the people who purchased it. It's actually a legitimate medical company who manufactured the vaccine that you're receiving. And for me, because of my work with Minnesota Community Care and with children's, we were doing a vaccine clinic, and I had to think about, if I'm truly about what I say I'm about. And I was not comfortable supporting a vaccine clinic administering the Johnson & Johnson vaccine if I wouldn't put it in my own body. And I'm out here and I'm kicking it. So, I do want to offer everyone has a timeline, and some people never will. And that's also okay. But my mind was changed, and I would just say be open to it and continue to educate yourself. Anthony, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think there's an important piece here. In addition to my support of the RHS organization, I'm also part of the ministerial staff of the AME Church, and one of the things that was important for us in our conversation as a family is our proximity to those who have been affected. This went for my neighbors. This went for folks in the program. This went to kids in the program. I am finding, as our sister gave the some of the data around who's getting it in our community, right? My proximity in my family has been much closer than many other friends or many other places that I've been in. One, because of the hospice care rotations and my clinical pastoral care training that I've had to do. So I've been in proximity to folks who have died and been affected severely by COVID. Our youth, in their conversations around it, our middle and high school youth, most of them are vaccinated largely because they have been in proximity to people who have died and had really and seen the negative effects directly. And so I think there's a proximity thing to this that is also at play, which is different than some of the communities that I've worked with who aren't in communities that are represented with overwhelmingly with the folks who have been affected. And that conversation has caused us to get real deep in our circles here because the stories of people who have lost aunts and loved ones. I mean, it's a different thing to have to come to program and to have a kid who's standoffish and their parents drop them off and then they realize that they're coming in because this weekend they're going to a funeral of one of the family members who died of COVID. And so I think that proximity piece is an important story to carry along with that for folks who may have not been in harm's way or in the areas where this has happened. I mean, we've had 600,000 plus deaths in the United States and contrasted to our partner, our sister organizations. Our kids are in contact with kids on the continent, in Ghana, in South Africa, because of the ties that we make here at ArtsUS. And the conversations when they hear the stories from those peers just causes a very different conversation amongst the population here at ArtsUS.
That's really important, is having that honest and authentic conversation with our young people about what's happening. And also recognizing that sometimes impacts how they show up. So you mentioned a kid being standoffish because they have a funeral to go to. I actually have observed that with some young people in my life, not because they were attending a funeral, but because they were so afraid of COVID that even in an outdoor activity, they were afraid to take off their mask or to talk too much, or they didn't want to eat any food, or they didn't want to play games. And so I think sometimes something that I forget as an adult, and especially now that I'm vaccinated and I can just, be outside and engage with people more, is I think sometimes we take for granted how this pandemic is impacting our young people socially, and how that might show up. One of the things that was really heavy on my mind when schools first went virtual was what is the social and emotional impact of our young people long term from being in some level of isolation, not being able to connect with their peers, have that safe space at school or extracurricular activities. I'm wondering, have any of you noticed shifts in your young people's behavior, whether it's the scholars that you work with or your own children, and how you've gone about navigating the tension that could come from them feeling the pandemic?
I can jump in from our standpoint with the Seeds to Harvest group. We, as again, we kept operations going for kids and families, basically through the whole process, maintaining COVID protocols and really being hypersensitive to what we were doing, still keeping kids engaged. We noticed a difference between the ones that were engaged and very clearly, and the ones that weren't, the ones that were on the periphery, and that we would see from time to time in this other settings. Our kids that were still active and playing and connected and everything else, again, they looked like their normal selves. They were moving forward with life. For those who definitely because of this circumstances, who kept the distance from each other, you can tell, and you can tell within these, even not just within the child, but the family dynamic, and even how that played out across the board. And we knew what the most troubling thing was, is that you had to make a very clear decision about what you want to do for your family. I can try and work with certain programs that have certain activities and protocols and everything else in place, or I can just err on the side of caution and make sure I keep my child here and safe and focus from that standpoint. But it's been a very, there's no such thing as a right or wrong conversation on it. It is what's the best path and course for your family in order to keep people safe and focus from there. But we, hindsight is, is an amazing, a story that we're able to, look back and say, I wish we would have tried some of the things there. We probably could have got more kids out and about, showing them how it's working, staying within that pod process where Adriene was talking about as well. And we're still, even with the summer games coming up, we're still maintaining a good portion of our COVID protocols, regardless of the fact that we have this, we've started to turn a corner. So it's just going to be a step-by-step thing. The biggest thing is to communicate with each other, to continue to learn from each other. I think what happens too often is that we kind of wear it as a badge of dishonor, that something happened. It's like, no, it was a virus that was spread, and that we support each other, as something may happen that is detrimental to the families and to the kids, and we keep uplifting and we keep pushing people on and do the best we possibly can with what we have.
Absolutely. And speaking of, oh, go ahead.
I got to give a shout out to Brother Mondo on this specific question. We were able to engage in a digital content creation process thanks to some funding from Ramsey County and in partnership with the African American Leadership Forum. I saw a difference of ignition that caused us to have to go back and look at some things. We focus a lot on the extroverts, or the kids who show up, in outward spaces. What we found is thanks to the work of Mondo and some of the tech leads and digital creatives who worked with some of our youth, we saw youth who were usually kind of in the background or quieter. We saw them ignite in this isolation. My son and daughter are a perfect example of that. My daughter thrived in this, self-contained space because that met her where she is. My son struggled and still struggles. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Mondo, because some of the work that he was doing around getting kids to be in a digital space ignited some of our introverts that weren't on our radar, or at least weren't as centered as some of our other students.
I'll echo that as well, because we partnered with Mondo on the end of last year. We pulled together very quickly with the support of the Department of Public Safety at the state level to engage kids in a fellowship. And Mondo was our advisor from the tech side. And just as Anthony said, our introverts were able to thrive and really move and create some amazing projects. And that was a great lesson that what's going to happen in the future is both and, that we're going to use these tools, regardless of what happens. And these are the great outcomes that come out of these tragedies, that we can actually look at some of these techniques that we had to use in order to keep things moving, to, open up more space and an opportunity for those who normally wouldn't participate. So, we just have to look at, not only the glass is half full, but we're going to keep pouring water and looking at these new ideas in order to engage as many people as we can.
You guys you're absolutely right. Mondo, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, I appreciate the love. Like really, it's just that, like, thank you for saying thank you. And moving forward, just hopefully everybody looking like, there are different types of humans, right? Like, we got to meet young folks where they're at, just like ourselves. Like, prime example, I am not a reader, but I am an auditory learner. I listen to audiobooks all the time. And so it's kind of the same vibe, right? Like, some people show up and want to be in the front, and that's how they learn. Me, myself, put me in the back of the classroom or at home by myself so I can think about things without the disruption, without the noise. And so I love it.
Yeah, it's incredibly important that we're celebrating the different ways in which our young people get to show up in the world. And I think another really important thing about tech and making sure that as parents, youth workers, community members, that we're encouraging our young people to continue to learn into tech is because look at how quickly our environment can shift, right? We went outside sometime March 2020, and that was the last time we went outside for months, essentially. Like, things can change drastically. And what we had was our technology, and so those of us who knew how to navigate it, or who had access to people like Mondo, we were able to make the pivots. We were able to utilize the digital platforms. That's how Black Life Amplified came to be, because there were a group of community leaders that said, okay, well, we can all come together, pull some resources, and we can get online, and we're going to have Adriene give updates specifically to Black people so that they know, like, hey, we are being disproportionately impacted. Like, we should take this seriously, and look at where we are now. We're over a year into this show. And we're continuing to grow and expand. You all have this amazing programming, and you're finding new ways to connect. Earlier in the show, Anthony brought up Philando Castile, and I felt like all the air in my chest just leave. I feel so still deeply, deeply traumatized by what happened to Brother Castile. And I still have no words for how to articulate to the young men in my life. I have 3 little brothers, how I communicate to them what happened, and then it continued to happen, right? We had Thurman Blevins, we had Jamar Clark, we had George Floyd. These are just the folks in Minnesota, not even including all of the incidents of public safety that took place nationally and globally, right? How are you guys engaging your young people around issues of police brutality and public safety?
Okay, that's a deep one. And, we have to be honest with our kids about 2 things. One, first and foremost, what we try to do is build relationships across the board. One, that they have a trusted adult in life that they can always go to, so they can feel as if there's a touchstone where somebody that they trust and they can actually get guidance from is there. So again, one of our 5 pillars is to make sure that we have that happen from there. But we developed very unique relationships. We knew that that was going to be a difficult thing to remind ourselves that officers are still going to be here. Law enforcement is still going to be here, and that a lot of officers look like us. So right off the bat, we worked out. One of our dear friends, Brooke Blakely, from from St. Paul, who's now a captain of Metro Transit Police, was like, how can we build a relationship together? And we started to use her team, her direct team, and our program to have not only service together, where they actually see each other as individuals and human beings, but more importantly, that the community can see it, and then that the kids can actually say, you know what, I know that person over there. Not that officer, but I know that person over there. And setting those those necessary building blocks to build the necessary trust and activity, and having the deep and frank conversations about how to interact when you meet with a police officer in a certain situation, and deepen that conversation. It's things that we've done throughout history, and I think at times, especially now, we kind of forget exactly what that has to look like again. And so having those deeper conversations, building relationships with people like Brooke and like Inspector Adams and others, they really say, this is how we can build this relationship, and this is what's in our best interest, because we want to make sure that everybody goes home safe, but more importantly, our community come home safe, that we shouldn't be having any more incidents, that if we're able to have those humanity connections, that, we have a better chance of making that happen.
Thank you. Anthony, did you want to go next?
Yeah, so one of the things, we have discourse circles here. And so we train youth in racial discourse facilitation and engagement. We have protocols in place so we can have some deep conversations. We let the conversations go where they go with these parameters in place. One of the things that has been front and center, it's funny, Georgia Fort and I do a podcast called Bearing Witness with Anthony of Georgia, and we had youth on last night. When youth are having this conversation with or without us. And one of the things that has been essential is the historical context, right? If I can connect the fact that these patterns aren't new, and that's what a lot of the youth are speaking to, patterns, right? Not whether or not we need to have police force and public safety, but the patterns in which we engage each other that get amplified in areas where there are power differences. And so those have been the center points of a lot of our conversations. And so talking to kids at George Floyd Square, talking to kids who are participating in demonstration, and talking to kids who are just trying to live and thrive, there are some very unique patterns. I think the most poignant thing that stood out for me is that these babies listen. We have this kind of air of thinking that kids can't come to their own, to put these patterns together and come to this level of consciousness. And I just haven't found that to be true. Not only are they there, we can refine language however we want to, but they're there, they're present with us the whole day. One of the kids in the conversation was talking about the complexities in the conflictedness of the 4th of July holiday. And they're saying, we don't really celebrate the 4th of July, but we take the opportunity to be with family. And her statement was, and I quote, I don't understand how we use this to celebrate independence when we weren't an independent nation. Her words. And she said we were dependent on slave labor and we were dependent on land theft from Native peoples. So it's not an independent celebration. It's something else. And that's the conversation we want to have. The moment she said that, the kids lit up. And all of a sudden, they started naming all these patterns in nuanced, in conscious ways that I wasn't even expecting. And so I think, to echo what Brother Buckner said, being frank about these conversations and then being ready to lead into them and lean into them, because the kids are right there and they're either going to have them with us or without us. And I'd much rather have them have that conversation with us.
Absolutely. I grew up being told children should be seen and not heard. Stay out of grown folks' business. You being nosy. And I trust and believe genuinely that, the generations that came before us did the best that they could with what they have. But what we know today is that our young people actually are capable of holding on to nuance and having difficult conversations. And Mondo, you have a platform where you're able to speak directly to young people and that allow as you said, everybody from the village can text and opt in so that they can be facilitating those conversations. What are some of the conversations that you think are important for us to have with our young people right now?
Yeah, so I think it's really it's framing up those questions and opting into space to have it, right? And so I'll just talk about my household in general. So my daughter is 14. She's transitioning from junior high to high school. One, I didn't have any sisters, no girls in my family. And so a whole bunch of dudes raising this young lady is like, yo, we all paying attention, making sure that she's good. And similar to what Anthony was just saying, like, these young folks are having these conversations with or without us. And so, my daughter and I spend a lot of time, I'll just call it like digest and debrief. And so I believe that media plays a huge part, right? Rather it's social media or production, right? Rather it's sitcoms or movies. And so we do a pretty good job of carving out time and watching a full film and digesting that and debriefing it afterwards. And I just do a lot of listening, like, yo, how did that make you feel? What are your thoughts? And just really creating a schedule to have that conversation with, the person that is most dear to me. And hopefully when she goes out and has those conversations with her friends, some of the positive energy from our household permeates to those friends as well. And so, really being present is something that I just have been focused on as a human, especially as an entrepreneurial human, right? That's always moving, that's always doing something. And so, like, how can I just sit in my own space and like just be present with the person that's in front of me? And I've just been hyper focused on doing that with my daughter as of late.
That's great. And can you give your phone number one more time for folks to opt in?
Oh yeah, that is 651-371-5411. Text the number. When you text the number, you get some prompts on like how to opt in all the way. And then you'll have like a video that says, this is how this works. And you'll see like, oh, that's pretty cool how I was able to say something back, text something back, answer multiple choice questions within the video. It's super dope.
Dope. And thank you, Mondo, again for being here. I want to go to Brett Buckner now. We're just about at time, so I'll just ask each of you a last question and then we'll wrap. You're doing programming on the North Side, and I went to youth programming on the North Side. I went to Lundstrom Center for Performing Arts, which used to be in Ascension. Churches over north, and I feel very differently about the North Side right now, with the increase in violence that's happening, and so what are you doing, or what do you have to say to parents who want to enroll their kids in your program but maybe feel apprehensive because of the community violence that's happening?
Most definitely. And again, real quick, what we're focused on right now is wrapping the community around the kids and making sure that they feel like they're in a safe place and that they're supported and be able to do what they need to do. So right off the bat, it's our organizations that continue to bring and send volunteers just to be supportive of the kids, to be right there. So at any given time, we have a handful of parents, volunteers, etc., right there with the kids and their participation in the park, but also outside in the other places. But the very unique partnerships that we talked about, Met Transit, Police Department, they actually are with us as full partners and will be on site every Saturday for all of our activities. And that's extended out to Hennepin County Sheriff's Department as well because of Chief Hutchinson's piece. So again, shout out to Chief Hutchinson and Captain Blakely. And basically, we're just wrapping our kids around and saying, and telling the community, this is going to be a safe place. We are going to make sure that this campus for the summer games is a safe place for kids to be their best and their brightest. And that's what we're committed to.
Awesome. And again, the website is seedstoharvestmn.org. If you want more information, you can sign up to volunteer. I saw on the website there's an opportunity for people to donate if they want to support the program. So there's lots of ways to get engaged.
Yay, time, talent, and treasure is all taken. Let's go.
Let's go. I love it. Anthony, I want to ask you, as a parent, as a youth worker, as a community leader, what can we be doing as the adults in the lives of young people to really build trust so that they feel safe and they feel comfortable to have the important conversations and to come to us when we do provide programming?
Identity development I think we are underutilizing our things that feed our identity. And I'm glad you mentioned Captain Blakey. She was a mentor of mine, and she played Harriet, an Underground Railroad simulation that we participated in growing up. But the programs like that and things that she instills when she engages with young people are focused on our identity space, identity that is not detached from, but an identity that doesn't focus on and isolate trauma. And so if I can grow in seeing the contributions that my people have made to the world, I have seen that being added to the mix as a place of resilience and strength to withstand any of the traumas that are coming towards us. And so here at Arts Us, one of the things that we're focusing on is providing opportunities to folks to do African storytelling, drumming. Alan Muir is a wonderful dancer and choreographer working with kids to bring out their body movements.
Shout out to Alan.
Yeah, shout out to Alan. So I just want to bring forward anything that we can do to fulfill an identity that says you are part of what made this space great, and all the places of excellence that have attempted to be interrupted by trauma. Trauma is an interruption of Black excellence. If we go to that frame, I have seen kids who have been engaging in activities like that in many different programs excelling. And so that would be my marker, is just to say, how do we build our collective positive identity around excellence? That is clutch right now.
Thank you. Adriene, I will close with you. What advice do you have for our parents in continuing to communicate to our young people about keeping themselves safe this summer?
I always tell parents, be honest. Don't try and dress it up. Don't try and make it look pretty. Just be honest with your kids and allow them to make the decisions for themselves. Even at the young age of 10, kids have their own thoughts. They have their own minds and they have their own opinions. And so allow them to express their fears and their concerns, their beliefs, and support them the best that you can in those decisions. That's the best thing that we can do for our kids.
There it is. All right. Well, arts-us.org is the website for Arts Us if you want more information about the programming that happens there. And then childrensmn.org, of course, you can go and find information about all of the pop-up vaccination clinics that they're doing and the accessibility to getting vaccinated if that is something that you choose to do, or just checking up on your young person in general and making sure that they're healthy. That's still important, something that we should be prioritizing. I also want to make you all aware about the Food is Medicine program that was just launched by Minnesota Community Care as of yesterday. So starting now through the rest of the summer, Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., there will be free food distribution for any family who's got a young person under the age of 19. You can come and pick up a bag of food. It's a 7-day food pack, and you can pick up a bag of food for every young person within your household. It'll be going on all summer. You do not have to be a patient at Minnesota Community Care. And we're going to be having wellness activities starting in about 2 weeks. So you can come and do some yoga, some Zumba. You can come and hopscotch, hula hoop, double dutch, all of that. We're going to just have a lot of fun, get activated, stay safe, and remind our community that we have our own solutions to keeping ourselves safe and engaged. And we're starting by making sure we activate the most important population within our community, which is our young people. So you can visit mncare.org for more information. We are well over time, so I'm going to wrap up. Panelists, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you do to serve our young people. I look forward to hearing more about the programs that you have over the summer, so please keep us posted. And for all of you watching at home, make sure that you stay tuned, because next Wednesday, Black Life Amplified, we're going back to our regular date and time on Wednesdays at 11:30, and we're going to be talking about the intersection of Black leadership and activism and how that plays out historically as well as in this moment today on a local level. So we've got a lot to unpack and a great dialogue. And of course, we're going to keep you updated on how to stay safe and healthy in the middle of this global pandemic. Until next time, please take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon. Peace.